opposed to as opposed to body of knowledge.
Yeah, and it's only when we do that, make that distinction, and look at it from the transdisciplinary perspective, that we see what is shared across these and what distinguishes them.
Yeah. So, first part, setting the stage. This is going to be a little interactive. So, I would like to ask the audience sitting in front of me, right now, or the audience.
Actually, this is probably not appropriate for this audience.
That's right.
We were hoping there would be others.
So this is actually questions for the
students,
for the people who might be watching the video. This is something that we do with students often. So, which do you think this statement is true? Air and water are elements, gold is not. And then the second one is gold is an element. And I'm pretty sure anybody who has a high school degree would say that the first is false and the second is correct. The question is, why do you say that the first is false and the second is correct? That's where epistemology comes in. Not only that, there is the problem with the word element. In ancient Ayurveda, use the word element like bhuta. Should bhuta be translated as the modern notion of element?
The same thing is there in Aristotle.
Yeah,
the same element.
Exactly. Did they mean element in the sense like matter composed of the same kind of atoms? Well, at those days, the notion of atom did not exist. So how do we conceptualize the notion of bhuta in Ayurveda? It becomes important. That's where the epistemology changes to ontology. You can say, if you ask students, God created the universe in 6 days, I'm pretty sure that at least 50% of the population in the United States would say, yes, that is true. But if you ask the other 50%, they would say, the universe as it exists today, including space, time, and energy, evolved from the singularity called Big Bang. This is the scientist's account. So the question would be, what is the justification for accepting 4 and not 3, or the other way around? Doesn't matter. That's where epistemology comes in. And then if you look closely, ontology will raise its head. You cannot separate the two. What about this? The universe as it exists today, number 5, including space, time, and energy, are manifestations of Brahman. If you accept the Big Bang theory, which is number 4, the properties of the universe at that point of singularity, suppose I use the word Brahman, which is a Sanskrit word, it might be easy for people who are in modern science to accept number 5, but they may not accept number 6. And for that, you need to understand the distinction between Brahman versus Brahma. Brahma is a deity, Brahman is not a deity. So this is where ontology becomes different from epistemology. And some of these matters are matters of the body of knowledge, whether you accept it as true or not. And the other is the question, why do you accept it as true? And what do you mean by that? What is the concept that you're referring to? So now slightly more abstract questions. Here is an epistemic principle that we accept in modern academic knowledge. If we accept a set of statements as true, we must also accept their logical consequences as true. This is the fundamental principle of rationality that we accept now. And the other part of it is the notion of logical contradiction. Logically contradictory combinations of statements are false. If we do not accept 7 and 8, then it'll be hard to function in the academic space. When I say academic space, I mean the space of rational inquiry as exemplified in the best of academic knowledge. These are epistemic principles, and they're part of the part of the knowledge system, not necessarily part of the knowledge, but the foundations of knowledge. And we also accept that human knowledge is uncertain and fallible. Even mathematics has that property, because ultimately it might turn out the case, something that we have proved to be true, it may turn out there is a problem in the proof. And so we might say, okay, we made a mistake. Now, number 9, human knowledge is uncertain and fallible, lies at the heart of dogma versus rational knowledge. The English verb know has built into it the idea that what we know cannot be false. But central to academic inquiry is the idea that no human knowledge is infallible. And number 10, something that comes from subscribing to 9, is the idea that we must doubt and question our own beliefs, as well as knowledge claims asserted by others, including those of our peers and those that we judge to be authorities. And this is exactly where the kind of Ayurveda that is taught in Ayurveda colleges today is different from the kind of Ayurveda that existed during Charaka's time, Sushruda's time, during ancient days. So what we are going to suggest is that ancient Ayurveda was a body of rational knowledge, whereas the way it is taught now is dogma, it is pseudoscience. This is a somewhat rash statement, but I hope that Kishore Patwardhan, who is going to do this next, who is going to go into the details of Ayurveda next week, would elucidate some of these statements. So now for the definitions. In the first 6 things in slide 3, those statements come under knowledge. Those are assertions of what is true or what is false. And these statements involve the existence of such things as reality, existence, universe, creator, evolution, and so on. And those come under ontology. Ontology is a set of things that we take to be part of reality, entities, attributes, relations, and processes that we take to be true. But interestingly, what we take to be true is a function of our epistemology. So there's an interesting relation between epistemology and ontology. One feeds the other. Our judgments on the truth or knowledgehood of 1 to 6 comes under epistemology. And the principles of ontology include slide 4 as well, 7 and 10. For example, our statements about logical contradiction, logical consequence, doubting and questioning, and so on. So a knowledge system, in other words, has 2 components. Central components are epistemology and ontology, as we have sketched. Now, your definition of ontology and epistemology may not be the same, but we can discuss that, the divergence in our concepts of ontology and epistemology, the data point. We would also like to introduce a notion, epistemic culture, which goes beyond knowledge system. We are borrowing this from C.P. Snow's idea of 2 cultures, but if you look closely, we will find that there are multiple cultures of epistemology, epistemic culture. Okay. Epistemic culture also includes the contrast between total certainty of belief and awareness of the uncertainty and fallibility. Some cultures accept as true only if it is completely certain, but science accepts as true something that is uncertain and fallible until there is evidence to the contrary. And along with that is this idea of doubting and questioning. Dogmas are not allowed to be doubted and questioned. In contrast, rational knowledge should be doubted and questioned And in one case, one epistemic culture, doubting is a virtue. In the other epistemic culture, it's a sin. There are epistemic cultures that are committed to rationality, like science and mathematics. But there are also epistemic cultures that say rationality has no place in knowledge. Real knowledge is communicated to us by a deity, by a god, or by some superior
divine revelation.
Divine revelation. Yeah. These are the parameters along which we differ. The different epistemic cultures different. Willingness to collaborate with other knowledge seekers and other epistemic communities. That's yet another aspect of the epistemic culture. And finally, there is a notion of debate. What's the purpose of debate? In one epistemic culture, the purpose is winning so that the other person loses. But in academia, at least the norm should be, we engage in debate in order to collectively seek truth. So we are all winners. There are no losers. Even the person whose claim has been proved to be false wins because you are now closer to truth. Okay, before we go on to definitions on the basis of these remarks, any questions that it might be a good idea to take questions now instead of just talking. And most of the ideas are there in the written version. So this is an occasion for conversation. Any questions from the audience?
I think you go ahead.
Okay.
I had a question. Actually, I put it in the chat. So the way you have defined ontology and epistemology, so ontology seems to be a subset of epistemology.
Not quite. See, here is a difficulty. Epistemology tells us, given a proposition, is it true or is it false or is it neither? Epistemology tells us how to find out. What are the norms to decide that? However, a proposition contains concepts, and some of these concepts we take to be part of reality.
Yes.
So the moment you say something is part of reality, something is real because we have shown that it is real, then it becomes part of ontology.
Yes, but we are making statements about existence of things, and those statements we take to be true.
Yes, but the moment you take it to be true, it is part of ontology, but the path to get there is epistemology. And when one changes, the other changes. So there is a close interaction between epistemology and ontology.
Okay.
So it is not the case that one is part of the other. There is a kind of cyclic relation between the two.
Okay. But the reason why I asked the question is that because what exists in reality, the statements we make about what exists in reality depends upon depends upon what we take or what is the state of our knowledge about the reality. In that sense, epistemology seems to subsume ontology, because we posit existence of certain entities which we take to exist in reality. In that sense,
I don't even know if we should think in terms of one being part of the other, but there is an interaction between the two, and each of them has underpinnings for the other.
Okay. Let me try this example. In this conversation, I assume that you exist, and I also assume that I exist with a physical body. I'm not simply a consciousness. I exist, that Tara exists near me. I take it for granted that I'm not hallucinating when I talk to Tara or touch Tara and so on. Now, if you ask me, or if I ask myself, how do I know this? Can I prove it? There is no way to prove it. So it's kind of first step towards knowledge seeking. I cannot prove it. This is the foundational assumption, foundational ontological assumption. And then once given that assumption, foundational axiomatic assumptions about ontology, and then axiomatic assumptions about epistemology, then we can establish certain things as true And once you establish those things as true, then the concepts in those propositions go back to ontology. So you could say your ontology consists of two things: proven results, which are ontological, and axiomatic ontological assumptions that we are not in a position to prove.
Okay.
There is a hand there, J.K. Lakshmi.
Yeah. I'm a newcomer to this forum and all that, so Gustaki maaf. But I wanted to say, from my layperson's point of view, it seems to me that ontology is a matter of belief and epistemology is a matter of knowledge.
That will take quite some time. Epistemology is a way of establishing beliefs, knowledge claims as knowledge, not simply a matter of belief. So I believe, for example, the earth revolves around the sun. And if you ask me, on what basis do you believe that? I have to go to my epistemic principles to prove that. And different epistemologies will give you different results. Some epistemologies will tell you the result, give you the result that it is not true. Others would say it is true. So that's where epistemology comes in. But once it is established, once I believe it is true, then that parts of that belief about reality will become part of my ontology. Actually, this distinction is not easy. What is important for us is to distinguish between different knowledge systems in terms of their epistemologies. And the most important part of that is epistemology of doubting and questioning, accepting uncertainty and fallibility of knowledge. All this is part of the modern scientific epistemology, which is not the case in the way Ayurveda is taught in current Ayurveda colleges, but it is perfectly consistent with the ancient Ayurveda. So it is that contrast between the ancient and the current that we would like to point to. And that is where people complain that Ayurveda is pseudoscience. And it is justified if they are complaining about the way it is taught, but it is not justified if you're talking about ancient Ayurveda as it existed 2,000 years ago.
So if you compare the two, perhaps they differ in their epistemology, but not necessarily in their ontology.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so a few definitions. We're going to use algebraic symbols. For a given knowledge, knower K, and a body of propositions P. Okay, so in order to define what knowledge is, we need to use these notions. Who is the knower, and what are the things that are known? So you can define knowledge as P is knowledge if and only if K judges P to be true. Another definition would be P is knowledge if and only if P judges it to be true beyond reasonable doubt. Notice that in the first case, I simply judge the statement that ghosts exist as true. Well, that will be knowledge for knowledge definition 1, but that's not knowledge by definition 2. For that, you have to establish as true beyond reasonable doubt. Okay.
And that's where evidence and
arguments come in. And the knower can be individual or community. That's also crucial, especially when it comes to education. So the question would be, what is academic knowledge? Not just any knowledge. So for example, I know that I didn't have tea for my breakfast this morning. That's part of my knowledge, but that's not part of academic knowledge. What's the difference? So you can say, for K, a given knower, a proposition is true if and only if K judges it to be true beyond reasonable doubt on the basis of rational justification. So this is where academic knowledge comes in. And the academic knowledge can now be defined as rational knowledge of an academic community. The knower this time is a community, and academic knowledge is definitely the knowledge of a community. And different communities differ in taking what they take to be knowledge. And we're going to use the word proof, even though the term is typically used in mathematics. We're going to use it for any justification. Not only axiomatic arguments in mathematics, but also empirical arguments in science, in ethics, law, and so on. So we're going to use a broader concept of proof. Of course, in the law court, the prosecution lawyer is supposed to prove that the accused is guilty, but that notion of proof is different. However, it is in those notions of proof that the epistemology comes in, epistemological differences between the legal knowledge system and the mathematical knowledge system. Okay. And we cannot move on to the concept of knowledge system without defining the notion system. And we are going to define system as a whole composed of interconnected, interacting parts that perform functions. The parts perform functions aligned to the function of the whole. And examples would include things like respiratory system, circulatory system, skeletal system, dynamical system, formal system, systems of logic, educational system. All these are systems. And knowledge system is such a system.
The alignment of functions and also the interconnectedness of the different parts in an interacting way.
And once we have defined knowledge and system, we can now say a knowledge system. What is a knowledge system? It's a system of a given body of knowledge, and it's composed of epistemology and ontology that underpin the construction and critical evaluation of that body of knowledge.
That form the basis for that construction and critical evaluation.
Without a knowledge system, you cannot construct a body of knowledge. Those are the foundations. And that leads us to the notion of epistemic culture we are drawing up on C.P. Snow's book, Two Cultures. C.P. Snow was talking about the culture of mathematics and science and the culture of humanities. The reference is given here, and you can see this in the video that will be uploaded. And we are going to use the word epistemic culture to include not only the ontology and epistemology, but also the value system, attitudes, habits of thought of a community that produces and consumes knowledge. And knowledge and knowledge system are two of the components of an epistemic culture. It's a totality. I'm aware that the term epistemic culture could be somewhat not sufficiently clear, but we can discuss them, maybe on email discussion forums and so on. Now, in India today, we have this phrase called Indian knowledge system. What does that mean? The first problem is the word India. So India did not exist, for example, during ancient times, during Charaka and Sushruta and so on. The word India refers to a nation, a geopolitical unit. So we can say that it can refer to a geocultural unit. So South Asian culture, for example, or geopolitical unit. If you use it as a geopolitical unit, that unit came to existence after 1947. And India as a geopolitical unit is distinct from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. But in the geocultural unit is not this nation that is distinct from Pakistan, but it's a South Asian culture. And India as a geopolitical unit did not exist in the ancient times. So we hesitate to use the word Indian knowledge system. We would rather say ancient South Asian knowledge systems. And that's what we're talking about even when we say Indian knowledge system. We are not referring to the geopolitical concept.
Can we take a pause? There seem to be some chats.
Chat questions? Oh, okay.
Okay.
No, there is nothing, no chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, nothing that needs response.
Yeah.
All right.
You can go on.
Yeah.
Can you move that? Yeah. If you click on this, would it disappear?
I don't know. Go ahead.
Oh, you're in trouble. Where did you click for chat?
Chat came up. The word came up. So.
No.
Yeah.
I can't seem to make it disappear. You introduced it, so you have to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that doesn't. Okay, done.
Okay, good. So after all these abstractions, let us take a concrete case of the distinction between Indian knowledge systems and other kinds of knowledge systems. One telling example is the concept of proof in geometry. If you compare the proof of Pythagoras' theorem in Euclid and in Bhaskara, you'll find interesting differences between the two. I won't go into the details. The mathematicians here would be able to, many people have written about these differences. One crucial difference is Bhaskara uses diagrammatic proofs, visual proof, and visual proofs are kind of frowned upon in modern mathematics. Whatever the reason, whatever the differences are, and so on, I'm not going to go into that. But if you look at the concepts of Euclid's proof is far more complicated than Bhaskara's proof. That's the first difference. I remember I mastered Euclid's proof of Pythagoras' theorem when I could prove it when I was in high school or something like that. But I don't think I really understood Pythagoras' theorem.
And intuitive understanding.
Until much later, I read this book, Concepts of Modern Mathematics. I still remember on page 7, Ian Stewart gives this Bhaskara's proof. All that was needed was just a diagram. And I said to myself, oh, so that is Pythagoras' theorem. I did not understand it until that point, and that happened after my PhD in linguistics. I think that is a central difference between the two kinds of proofs. There are many other kinds of proofs. I won't go into that. Something more interesting, something that I learned recently. Well, before I do that, let me say.
You have 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay. But we'll kind of stop whenever, Yeah. My computer is also going to disappear. Okay. It's only 18% charge. Differences in the formal notation. So if you come, Panini and Chomsky are both linguists. But if you look at the formal notation, they are drastically different. Chomsky's formal notation is derived from symbolic logic and computer science, while Panini's formal notation for stating the regularities of language are based on syllables. So he has a sequence of syllables, ka, ga, gha, etc., arranged in a certain way. And to refer to a class of sounds, he states the first one in the sequence and the last one in the sequence. That includes all the sounds in that set. That's an unusual way of referring to categories of speech sounds. And I thought when I learned this stuff long ago, 1979 or so, I thought this was interesting and somewhat strange. But then I discovered very recently, about 2 weeks ago, that there is something called Katrapayadi in Sangramagrama Madhava. It's in mathematics. And I'm not going to go into the details. You can see it in the reference here, Ditti Chacko and Manu Pillai in the YouTube video. And what's interesting here is that Madhava uses syllables, spoken syllables to refer to numbers. Now, when there was the arithmetic system, the 10-digit system in ancient India, why did Madhava use syllables to represent numbers? That also is something interesting. And then you connect that to what is called Konnakol, which is using the same idea of syllables to represent beats. So if you put together Panini, Katrapayadi, and Konnakol, you get a a unified culture, a unified knowledge system that uses spoken syllables as formal notation for various things. Now, I don't fully understand the connections between them. That is for researchers, younger researchers. But that's an important difference in the knowledge system, the formal notation which goes into the knowledge system. So given that we have, but Tara, we didn't start at 9 o'clock. So it's not yet,
Yes.
Yeah. There is just one difference, though. We don't have, we have only 15% of computer battery.
I get that.
Yeah. Can you? Yeah, let's see. Okay. Any quick questions before we go into transdisciplinary ontology? Okay. So here is one transdisciplinary ontological concept. Change. Okay. Change is a difference in time. And then you can say change of location is motion. Then you can talk about change of velocity, change of structure, change of color, change of shape, historical changes. So these are specific parts of the ontology of different things. Historical change is part of the ontology of human history, but change of location is part of the ontology of physics, especially physics of motion. But there is something that is transdisciplinary in the sense that it cuts across disciplinary boundaries. Structure is such a transdisciplinary ontological notion. By structure, we include compositionality, that is the part-whole relation, and subcategory, ordering relation, and so on. And if you look at linguistics and chemistry, in linguistics, we have phonological structure, syntactic structure, semantic structure, and so on. Okay. It's at least switched on. Okay. The switch there that we need to use. Yeah. Okay. Oops. Structure of molecules is very different from phonological structure and syntactic structure, structure of words, structure of sentences, and so on. Chemistry is concerned with the structure of molecules. Linguistics is concerned with structure of sentences. But they are both concerned with structure. And the differences between linguistics and chemistry are of a specific... Something there?
No. It's on.
It's on? This is not functioning. Can you take my... Another example of transdisciplinary ontology is function. So in biology, anatomy is a study of structure and shape, while physiology is a study of function. So you can say study the structure and shape of the heart is anatomy, but function of the heart is that of physiology. And let's ignore this relation between structure of function, which is many to many. I'm going to skip anthropology. I'm also going to skip linguistics. And the basic reason is that I'm afraid my computer will have no... we're trying to charge it, but we're not... okay. Tara has found a way of doing it.
Might have.
Yeah. Transdisciplinary epistemology contains postulates, the concepts and propositions that are postulated, for example, definitions and axioms in math. I'm beginning to realize that the design of this PowerPoint is mostly keeping the mathematicians in mind, and the non-mathematicians may feel slightly out of place. But if some of these are opaque, please email to us and we'll respond. The transdisciplinary epistemology also contains the notion of logical consequence. And logical consequence is what is derived through valid reasoning from the postulates. The notion valid reasoning is extremely important. I'm not going to explain this. It's what I think most of it is done in the 14-page document. And proof is rational justification for the claims. Computer is back. And the tools for knowledge construction, which is also part of the transdisciplinary ontology, contains generalizing, defining, categorizing, subcategorizing, and so on. These are some of the basic tools. And the outcome would be generalizations, definitions, axioms, and so on. Classificatory system. I'm now beginning to wonder if you should include things like explanandum and explanans.
No, I think skip that.
Skip that. Okay. We're going to skip this because okay, now let me go directly to what people are looking for.
Ayurveda.
Yeah, because this is how it was advertised.
Yes.
The question is Ayurveda science or pseudoscience? This is where the real meat of the But we are not going to go into the details. We'll just point to a suggestion that we have. If you look very closely at the system of Ayurveda as is present in the ancient texts, you will find that it was characterized by scientific temper, an awareness of uncertainty and fallibility of human knowledge, willingness to doubt and question, value of rationality, openness to correction. All these are present. If you look at the dialogues, for example, that Kishore Patwardhan has written, they are up on the web. You will see these characteristics very clearly in his representation of ancient Ayurveda. In contrast, what I would call medieval Ayurveda, when the medieval Ayurveda starts and when it ends is up to you to decide. I'm just stating the contrast between the two. And that's characterized by total certainty of faith, blind faith in authority, knowledge as revealed by gods. In fact, this happened to me when I was in an Ayurveda college, when one of the speakers claimed that... one of the speakers actually claimed that Ayurveda was revealed to humans by a god, a supreme omnipotent deity. So I raised this question: if you claim that Ayurveda is a science, how can you claim that it is revealed by God? Because these are scientific epistemology does not accept knowledge through revelation. But if that is what is taught in Ayurveda colleges today, then students cannot challenge it. And if students cannot challenge what is taught by their teachers, then it is blind faith. It is not Ayurveda. The modern Ayurveda is actually what we call modern Ayurveda is a hope. I don't think it exists yet. It has to be forged. It has to be created. It is a renaissance of Ayurveda with scientific temper. We have to combine whatever is valuable in Ayurveda with, for example, knowledge of biochemistry, molecular biology, cellular biology. None of these things were available to ancients. These were things before microscopes were invented. So until we get a grasp of Ayurvedic theory that includes the modern Ayurvedic theory, that includes cellular biology and molecular biology, we don't have modern Ayurveda yet.
Well, I think more about that.
Yeah.
Kishore will talk next week.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is making Kishore's life difficult. Kishore. Okay.
I got a question.
Yeah.
My name is Ashwar Fedia, and you mentioned about the Ayurveda. I was chief statistician in Central Ayurvedic Research Institute in Jamnagar for 4 years. I have investigated many of the clinical trials they did and published those papers in medical journals. So Ayurvedic system or medical system, Ayurvedic, is not pseudoscience. It is indeed science, but it takes time to make effective, and their effects are a little longer. Whereas modern science is quick to get result. So there is a conception that Ayurveda is a pseudoscience. That is not true. Yeah. It has its own impact, it has own value. Only thing is it takes little slowly to cure, whereas modern medicine cures faster. And that is why sometimes Ayurvedic medicine is not appreciated, but it has its own value. Thank you.
Yes, I don't think we have any disagreement with you. I think what we are sort of perhaps critical about is not Ayurveda as a science itself, but the way it is taught in Ayurvedic colleges.
That could be the thing, that I have no problem.
And central to that is the disconnect between Ayurvedic theory of what was articulated as Ayurvedic theory or theoretical framework during ancient times, and what Ayurvedic doctors actually do. There are Ayurvedic doctors who send their patients to, for blood test and so on. But blood test would have been impossible for Sushruta and Charaka, because that notion of microscope, cellular biology, and molecular biology did not exist. So there is a huge disconnect between their practice and the theory that they, articulate. So until that disconnect is removed, and the ancient theory is revised such that it makes predictions about blood tests.
But then that disconnect may not be there in the research that he's talking about.
Not in the pharmacological research.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it is the relation between the medicine, the medical, the medicine that you give and its consequences, and so on. All these
those
tests,
are fine. There's nothing pseudo about that.
Yeah. So there is the experimental part, which is actually practiced by Ayurveda researchers and so on. In fact, I am friends with a large number of Ayurveda researchers, but they're all experimentalists. And I think this is what Kishore Patwardhan, who is we have been working together on the need to integrate the theories of modern medicine and theories of Ayurveda into a single system. It's only then that there'll be...
into a mutually, not necessarily a single system, but...
but a single theory.
Valuing each other's.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there has to be a single theory so that there is cross-pollination. Right now, cross-pollination occurs only at, in terms of, borrowing medicines and some practices.
See, if you say a single theory, that's where the epistemologies will come into conflict. So you can't demand a single theory. But
then what you have to do is to accept the epistemology of ancient Ayurveda and modern medicine. They're together, and reject the epistemology of the way it is taught. Yeah. So how do we, if you accept that there is a problem in the way Ayurveda is taught, it is also true about the way modern medicine is taught in medical schools. We have problems with the attitudes that the medical graduates have, which is very similar to the Ayurveda graduates. What we are suggesting is that this problem can be solved by changing the Ayurveda curricula as follows. In the first year, we have an introduction to critical thinking and rational inquiry embedded in the scientific temper. First year program. No, you don't have to change the entire curriculum, but one course each. Second year, there is an intermediate course on critical thinking and inquiry. Third year, there is an introduction to research. Not simply lectures on research, but actual research practice. And then fourth year, introduction to research in Ayurveda. Then this would mean integrating the theoretical component and the practical component, and placing this in a proper rational framework. A lot of Ayurveda research that I've seen, especially coming from India, are done without any understanding of research methodologies. I'm not saying that this is the case with all researchers, but the bulk of research that I see in Ayurvedic journals by researchers from India are of that type. So this doesn't deny excellent research coming from various places. But then the bulk of research is inadequate.
Ultimately, the aim should be to show the world that Ayurveda is not a pseudoscience.
Right. And that only, the curriculum and the students produced by the curriculum can do. Okay. Now we can have questions and discussion about the entire stuff instead of the little specific parts. Sorry about rushing through. It's only while we were discussing this that we kind of realized that many of the parts were somewhat unclear to people outside of mathematics. But let's see. There's a whole range of people here. So, questions?
Questions, suggestions?
Yeah.
Well, I have a question. Well, it's basically about promoting Ayurveda in a systematic way to be learned as a science and also a degree of 4 years and all. Question is it really a good substitute for allopathy? And is it going to make waves if we do produce a lot of Ayurvedic doctors who will treat the patients, which unfortunately that hasn't happened in so many years. So do you see the future to be bright, or do you see there is going to be a challenge in promoting Ayurvedic medicine?
Can I cite a personal example at this point? Since 2021, I lost use of my legs for now to numbness because of nervous issues in the spine. So there's no nerve conductivity. And I was treated from 2021 till 2025, towards the end of 2025, by the medical. I went to at least 6 neurologists. And then a few months ago, 3 months ago, I went to an Ayurvedic clinic, a specific Ayurvedic physician. And in 3 months, there was absolutely no change in 4 years. And now in 3 months, there is some relief. Now, that for me is a huge thing. And I've heard such stories elsewhere. This is not just anecdotal. I mean, my story alone is anecdotal, but there is enough evidence of that kind where without creating harm, there has been effectiveness, efficacy. So yes, definitely, Ayurveda does need to be promoted.
His question is actually about the challenge of doing that. Is that going to happen, or will it continue being dismissed? This, unfortunately,
happen. The education system has to change.
The dismissiveness is the problem of education system for both modern medicine and for what they call traditional, ethnic, non-mainstream medicines. This happens, for example, in something like chiropractic medicine. The people who are not familiar with chiropractic medicine dismiss it as, pseudoscience. They dismiss homeopathy. They dismiss anything that they don't know as homeopathy. However, notice that they don't dismiss, an orthopedic surgeon does not dismiss neurosurgeon as pseudoscience. That is because all of these are taught in the same medical program, and they know the connections exactly between them. They know how to interact between each other. But the modern culture of teaching Ayurveda is so radically different that no conversation is possible. So what we are suggesting is to prepare ground for a conversation, then that has to be done at a theoretical level.
To prepare ground for conversation and for mutual respect.
And the theory, actually, from our personal perspective, the theory is extremely exciting because because of some of the concepts of energy built into Ayurveda, which biology is actually beginning to recognize. Chemical energy, thermal energy, light energy, all these are actually part of the Ayurvedic concepts, as I can see. And to make these connections between modern science and ancient Ayurveda, then it will lead to a research that sheds light on otherwise unexpected correlations between, let us say, the skin and human mind. These connections are made in the guna system, but the scientific basis, theoretical basis, is not articulated. I mean, when I say scientific basis, what I mean to say is basis in terms of modern science.
Yeah.
And once that is done, I personally believe that research on Ayurveda can, in fact, lead to many Nobel Prizes. But then we need Ayurveda students to be able to do that. Right now, their training is not such that they can do that. And so we're making a plea to change the curriculum.
There's a hand up.
Hand up. Yeah. J.K. Lakshmi.
I want to attempt to answer Dr. Kishore Kulkarni's question. I think he asked, can Ayurveda be a worthy or some kind of substitute for allopathy? And the answer to that is no. You cannot use Ayurveda the way you use allopathy. You cannot use any system of medicine the way you use any other system of medicine. But can Ayurveda play a role in healthcare, in health promotion, in disease prevention? Definitely. And it has shown that it can. It has shown over the centuries that it can. But in order for it to play its role, it needs, as the speakers were saying, it needs there to be a context where it has some some power, some agency, and that has to be brought about by education. And by education, I mean formal education of Ayurvedic practitioners, but also the informal education and the raising of awareness of the general public, other practitioners of other systems of medicine, patients, potential patients, and just the general public. So it needs that in order for it to be practiced as it should be practiced, and then it can perform as it's meant to perform. But under the constraints that are present in modern contemporary society, Ayurveda is considered, or any other system of medicine, but allopathy is positioned as a substitute to allopathy and is meant to wear the clothes of allopathy and do the job. It won't happen. It will always come up short.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
I say one major difference between Ayurveda and allopathy. In Ayurveda, the dietetics is very much a part of the treatment as well as any medicine. For instance, one of the major principles of Ayurveda is you should eat 2 parts of the colon. You can fill the colon with 2 parts of food, 1 part with water, and keep 1 part empty. This simple principle is never mentioned by any allopathic doctor. And now, some of the Japanese doctors, they got even Nobel Prizes. If I remember correctly, autophagy was the word. That is, they're really doing intermittent fasting that can lead to better immunity, better stamina, and so on. Another thing is the use of various oils. For instance, in my childhood, my parents used to give me castor oil. That system has somehow not survived after I went to the United States. But the use of castor oil, if you not only sip it, but also just apply it to navel points, for lower abdomen, for knees and joints, for the neck, etc. I think that should be a part of the general education, and it's not so much allopathy versus Ayurveda, but some combination of the two, which will be useful for the whole humanity.
Yeah, I think we've all gone through the rituals of the castor oil in our childhood.
And I don't think the modern pharmacology will have any problems in simply borrowing things from various so-called ethnic medicines. Even something like aspirin is a good example, or turmeric is an example. When they find that some particular plant product is useful, they borrow it and they put it into in their tablets and various kinds of things, and they sell it. What they are opposed to is using healing practices that do not lend themselves to making money. So if you can put some healing into a tablet and sell it, they will accept it. But if you say change your lifestyle, how can you make money out of that? So for that you need a major.
Now you're not talking about medicine.
No. But
about pharmacology.
Pharmacology, the industry, the sales, and so on. So there are many different levels at which we should make some changes, and that is where the public will have to be educated. Ayurveda students will have to be educated. Practitioners, Ayurveda researchers will have to be educated, and those are serious challenges. Those are not easy. Changing the current Ayurveda teachers is probably next to impossible, but you can change the students. When they become teachers, something good will happen. But I find that the same problem exists in science teaching. Current science teachers are not scientists, they are dogmatists.
That's not true in mathematics and the theoretical, I think, physics, chemistry, biology. I don't think they are dogmatists.
Well,
by their training.
I agree that for the community of people that you interact with, that is not the case.
Yes.
The majority of the people. So I'm not saying people like, the people who teach at MIT and Stanford are dogmatists. No.
Okay, I think that's for a different.
Yeah, that's a different. Yeah.
Avinash has a question.
Avinash.
Yeah, I had posted a question in the chat. I'll just read it out aloud.
Yeah. Can you repeat that?
So I wanted to understand the motivation behind relating knowledge systems to geocultural political entities.
That's because of the word Indian knowledge system.
No, even South Asian, for example.
No, it's a contrast between Indian and South Asian. You have the knowledge system, but it would be a misnomer to call it Indian.
Yeah.
Because it is shared across the South Asian.
I agree. But once it's a knowledge system, it should belong to entire humanity, so to say, rather than.
Okay.
Now, fair enough. There are some differences in this broad geographical area. So it's interesting that there are some differences, and it's important to understand these differences in this area. But if you make a distinction between India and Pakistan, that is lost. So Panini, for example, was working in Takshashila, which is now part of Pakistan. So Panini should not be called an Indian linguist. He should be called Pakistani linguist.
No, that's not my question. Yeah. My question is, we will not call homeopathic medicine as German knowledge system. It is just a knowledge system.
Homeopathy has spread all over. In fact, it's used all over Europe.
Sure.
Yes, but once we recognize it as being scientific or by being rational,
Avinash,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but the idea of Indian knowledge system, the picking it up and talking about it and saying that it's a misnomer, came because of the current emphasis everywhere on Indian. You have programs and courses on Indian knowledge systems, which has become almost a fad, even
Yes, I agree.
places like IITs and so on. And it was in that context that this was picked up.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise that
sure.
That
also, at the same time, it is important to do research on unique characteristics of this geographical region. Exactly how you define that geographical region doesn't matter. So there is, for example, a book about ancient Indian mathematics by P. Divakaran. I think he's no more.
Yes.
In chapter 4, he raises the question, what is Indian about Indian mathematics?
I have read that chapter.
Yeah, that's an extremely interesting
pursuit. He talks about the process of creating knowledge versus the result of the knowledge.
Yeah.
So the result
same question can be asked about Ayurveda, the same question can be asked about linguistics and so on.
Yes.
There is some flavor, but that flavor is not clearly understood. I don't think I understand it fully. That's why I raised this question about Euclid's proof and Bhaskara's proof.
Okay.
So what is it that is distinctive about this region is an interesting question to ask, research question. That may not apply directly to practice. It doesn't really matter. Because after all, mathematics comes from multiple cultures.
Yes. Okay.
Very good. I think Lakshmi has a question.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to make 2 points. I was raising my hand because I wanted to say something about research in systems like Ayurveda. The what's that? Unfortunate truth about today and tomorrow, it seems to me, is that the research that is being done in Ayurveda is boiling down to some kind of botanical research or biochemical research or something like that. I mean, like, if you see the effect that turmeric has on your blood pressure or some microbial count and things like that, that's not Ayurvedic research. If you see that the turmeric has been applied in an Ayurvedic manner, that is, there's been a case taken and it has been decided that this person with this constitution and these symptoms should get turmeric, and turmeric is given and then it works. That is Ayurvedic research. So it seems like a lot of the research in a very reductive manner is being studied, is a pursuit of some mechanistic explanation for the working of an Ayurvedic drug, rather than seeing whether the Ayurvedic application of a drug or some therapeutic modality like a massage or something works. That's one thing I wanted to say. And as I was waiting, Avinash Pandey asked his question, and I want to say what I think is the motivation behind relating knowledge systems to geocultural and political entities, and particularly through the times of their origin in history, because knowledge systems of any kind are products and components of their cultures, and it's really important to know in what circumstances they originated and how they developed, and what all terminology and values they have absorbed. If you don't look at the life cycle, the trajectory of the development of the knowledge system, you could miss a lot, and you could also misinterpret a lot. So although say homeopathy is now is actually more Indian than European now. There are more practitioners of homeopathy in India than anywhere else in the world. But we need to know that it developed in the Europe of the 18th century, so that we know why certain thoughts went there, and why why so many European plants are the bulk of homeopathy and so on, because and why certain thoughts were there about some diseases and health promotion. For example, contraception is a sin. Homeopaths today don't think contraception is a sin, but Kent said contraception is a sin. That was true in Kent's time. So we really, it is important, I think, to understand the geocultural political context of the origin and development of these systems for us to really understand those systems better.
Rohit Parikh has a hands up.
Yeah, I have two comments. They're somewhat unrelated, but I'll make the first comment and then I'll see if people have patience for the second comment. The first comment is this: that when we talk about should we talk about Indian culture or South Asian culture, then it's a way of trying to adapt language to reality, and we are all aware of this reality. I mean, the thing is that one could say that before 1000 AD, South Asian culture could also be called Hindu culture or maybe Hindu Buddhist culture, right? I mean, Afghanistan was very strongly Buddhist at one time. Now, currently, we have the situation that Pakistan is a part of South Asia, and Pakistan that would not like to call itself part of Indian culture, right? And Pakistani culture is very strongly influenced by, say, Arabia and Iran, right? So now we have the difficulty of noticing that a geographical entity, South Asia, and cultural entity, which we might call Indian culture, coincided at one time, but they don't coincide anymore. And talking about the business about Takshila, I was thinking about the fact that the mother of the Kauravas was Gandhari, right? And I would assume that this would imply that she was actually an Afghan. But at that time, of course, we didn't have the word Afghan. But she obviously came from Kandahar, if she existed, right? So we have a difficulty. Now, I myself have a belief which I think is not practical, but which I will propose anyway, which is that in 1947, a mistake was made because a country which used to be called India became divided into two parts, Pakistan and India. And so the major part, the Hindu part, retained the name India, which had been the name of the whole area, right? The consequence of that is that by means of this language, Pakistanis became non-Indian, right? But of course, leaving aside culture, the food in Pakistan is very similar to food in North India. Urdu is, in fact, Urdu and Hindi are languages where people can understand each other. So there is a way in which currently Pakistan is culturally like North India, but we have the word India, which we kept ourselves, and we threw the Pakistanis out, and eventually, of course, we threw the Bangladeshis out. So I think the issue is how do we adapt language to the reality that we know, which is that Pakistan didn't used to be Muslim, but is now a Muslim and very proud of being Muslim. And nonetheless, they are in some sense our brothers. So how do we adapt language to this reality, right? And it's a difficult issue because behind the use of language comes also certain political loyalties. And of course, we can assume that Pakistanis have different political loyalties than Indians have, right? I personally think that it would have been better in 1947 to say there are two countries, there is Pakistan, there is Bharat, and both are India. It would have been much better because then we could have a word for the commonality, and we don't have that word.
That is where the people with scientific training should have some more influence in the society, and for that they should express themselves in the way you are expressing.
Thank you. Shall I make my other comment?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So my other comment is a technical one, and it goes back to the title of a book by W.V. Quine, one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century. And he starts his book on ontology with the single sentence, "What is there?" Right? And then he answers everything, right? And it's intended to be a joke, but it's also a truth. But I would explain it by means of this seminar, that in this seminar, the ontology consists of 13 people. Not all 13 are here, but it consists of 13 people at one time. And these different 13 people had different properties. For example, Avani is a woman, Kishore Kulkarni is the president, Ravi Kulkarni is the vice president. So we have the ontology consists of 13 things, or 13 objects which exist. And so one could ask the question, in terms of the seminar, one could say, what is there? And the answer would be 13 people who are listening to the lecture. But then one could also ask questions, what is true about these people? And then one could say, well, Kishore Kulkarni is president. And then the question could be raised, how do you know? That would be epistemology. So my loose explanation might explain something about the difference between ontology, which is the answer to what is there, and epistemology, which is about how do you know.
That's an
a very nicely put.
That's an excellent way of putting it. Yeah.
Very good. Well, we have a time enough for one last question if somebody has it. Otherwise, we are coming back next Sunday at the same time to listen to Dr. Kishore Patwardhan on Ayurvedic subject as well. So I think we can continue this in the next week as well. Does anybody have a last comment?
Let me make one comment. How to possibly start bringing together Ayurveda and allopathy. I asked those questions in my reply to KP's 14-page essay. But here are the chemical compositions of different syrups or oils. Are they known? And otherwise, that should be a matter of research in Ayurvedic colleges to work out those and express those chemical compositions.
And I think that I would say that this is exactly the question that Kishore will have to answer, because he's a faculty member of the prestigious Ayurveda college department. Yeah. He is a professor there. So he would be in a much better position to answer that question. So we should probably wait for, I don't know if Kishore is still there.
No, he's not
connected. No, he was in a train, so he must have lost connection. Yeah.
So let me take this best example of the common cold. I think allopathists as well as Ayurvedic doctors, nobody claims that they know the exact etiology or the medicine for that. Linus Pauling was working on the hypothesis that C vitamin is a cure for common cold. Now, in Ayurveda, Adulsa, Anutel, Nasya, ginger honey milk, or lemon tea are considered as possible medicines. Now, I'm pretty sure that in the chemical composition of Adulsa, Anutel, there must be some C vitamin there. So these things should be pointed out if we want to bring together these different pathies. That's my comment, not a question.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time and the presentation. I know we will come back next Sunday and talk some more about this. But thank you everybody for attending. Do keep in mind that in September 18th and 19th, we do meet in Newark for our next conference. So keep your papers ready and send them my way to be included in the program of the conference. Very good. And thank you again for the speakers. Thank you everybody for attending. And it has been a wonderful pleasure to listen to both of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
May I make a quick comment about the conference?
Yes.
The thing is that I noticed that that you do say the conference is not only about India-related issues, but I would suggest that since the conference is 2 days, that maybe you could split it into 1 day entirely India-related and 1 day more general things, because there are a lot of Indian academics, very, very brilliant people, and even Ravi's own research is not entirely about India. So we should try to bring Indian scholars talking about other things into this meeting. So we could have India related and universal. That's
well, if there are enough fascinating papers on a theme that is not India related, we'll be happy to have sessions in that regard as well. There is no point in declining any interesting presentation. So yeah, we will find a way to accommodate all kinds of submissions
what
and
I'm
considerations.
saying is the following. Let's suppose that somebody is giving a party, and he invites all his white neighbors. And as for his black neighbors, he says, "Oh, you are also welcome." Then that is a racist distinction, right? Because to say to the whites you are invited, and to the black ones you are also welcome, it's saying that the blacks are second class. And I would say, don't make the universal second class.
Well, but then again, our mission as well as our name is clearly Indian academics. So I thought the idea is to stick to the mission, which is promote the Indian academics, and that's why the title is there. But it's a quite flexible title. And nobody is treated as a stepbrother or anything.
No, I know nobody will be, but your language makes it sound like this, right?
Well,
so I would just moderate the language. That's all I'm saying.
I will do that.
I will know people who will be actually contributing the papers. Rohit.
Yes.
Do you know some people who will be actually contributing the papers?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perhaps
yes,
if we know the contents of that paper, we can approve them.
No, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if the language makes people not primarily about Indian issues, then even if they are Indian and if they are great in their field, they'll say, "Oh, I'm being treated as a second-class person." That you don't want. That message you don't want to send.
See, Rohit, I totally see your point. But as I said, I think we have India bias because that's what we are, SIAA.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so you and I are sort of more or less in agreement.
Okay.
And more or less is good enough.
Okay. Very good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah. Take care.
And I thank both the Mohanans for a wonderful talk. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.